This is random information that I'm sharing. I don't really have a script. I'm just talking freely about some of the parts of Alaska and my journey while I was there. So, it's just raw audio, and I'm not going to edit it, but this is Valdez, and I was a solo female traveling camping in Alaska for months, and this is one of the lives that I had shot while I was there. So I'm just going to randomly talk about my trip, and I'm not in a hurry. I'm just having fun and sharing some of my experiences. I thought I would take time to kind of explain why Valdez is one of my favorite places in Alaska. I don't think many people typically make the trip there to see Valdez. Now, I'm sure they do to go fishing, specific tours, things like that. But in general, I don't think that many people that fly into Alaska drive for hours on end to reach a certain point where you can't go anywhere else. So I think Valdez is um, a place that, just they don't take the time to get there. So I want to tell you why Valdez is one of my favorite places. So, of course, I was there during COVID, which was no fun, really. Everything was shut down. But I also went back after I lost all my footage in a second round of Alaska. I went back and I was able to do more. Um, and I kind of fell in love with it. I would live there if it weren't so dang cold in the winter. And if you have to deal with like 9 months that are dark, I like the dark. Uh, more than sunny days, for me, because the sun is just so blinding for me. You'll never catch me outside without glasses on. But anyway, um, I love this area. One, because it's beautiful, but there's so many other areas that are beautiful. I found that for entertainment as a solo female, outside of the fact that I did go fishing, but it was out of Seward, Alaska. This I know has a lot of fishing boats that charter people and whatnot, and they also have the glaciers you can go to, and I'm sure there's charters other places. But Stan Stevens, I went on that tour to the glaciers, so that was really neat. But you get to see otters, you get to see sea lions, and I didn't remember seeing them at other locations, and I'm sure they were there. But the biggest catch-all for me was when I accidentally discovered that they have the salmon run. So I was there. I heard people talking about Valdez. You have to remember, I did not plan my trip. So all of this was purely by accident. Everything that I found was by accident. Now, I was located in trying to remember the area. It was near Denali. It was past Denali. And I overheard someone talking after, I was eating breakfast by myself. And I would go to this place maybe once a week um to have something, special that I didn't have to cook myself. I was camping. So it was a treat for me. So, and you've got to understand, you think that I've completely 100% active, active, active. I wasn't. One, it was the worst time in my life. And camping solo was a distraction for me. And of course, Alaska, I always dreamt of going to Alaska. I had my son who was in the military there. So it wasn't much to think about as far as getting there. However, or having someone there. The problem was I didn't know if I could make it through Canada. I knew Canada was closed. Like they weren't allowing people to go through. And when I pulled up, there was no one in line. So, at the border. So I asked them, or told them that I was hoping to go to Alaska. And I thought I might would live there and, get a job there or something. And they said, well, you can't make it through. I said, I'll drive straight through. He says it takes 4 days. I said, I'll do it in 3. So back then I had one of the police ID uh, tags on my car. So I think he saw that, and I think that helped a little bit. I don't know. It was brought up, but it wasn't like he didn't say, well, only because of this. So he did let me drive through, and it was rough. I mean, I drove for, oh, so long. Now you got to understand, I can drive. I drove to that location, and I was zigzagging all over. My biggest problem across the US, so my biggest problem was getting Wi-Fi. So while I was camping, I had to find areas that was, out of normal places to go because they were shut down, like for camping, or there were some hotels that were open and only drive-throughs. So restrooms, as I mentioned in some previous recordings, that was a big issue because there were none available. Um, and so I just drove. It took me 9 days. 9 days, $900 in gas to drive. And it was kind of funny because there wasn't much traffic. Everyone was confined to their home when my home was my car. I couldn't find a tent until Father's Day. I left, oh, I don't even remember. I think it was, mm, I'm not sure what day it was, but I do know that Father's Day was approaching and the government was allowing people to go camp outdoors. And I know there was specifics about that you had to, stay so far apart and all of that. So, my goal was to stay away from where people are. In my vision, even in Alaska, I felt safer way out in the middle of nowhere. I don't trust people very easily, and especially if I'm camping. One reason I have found that people, sure, they may have like a big, nice camper, but they would leave food out, like massive amounts of food just sitting out on a picnic table half the day. And there were a lot of bears. And I hope you consider that whenever you go camping, especially where bears are involved. If you leave this food out or you're neighbors with somebody, uh, you're just as much in danger. You may be doing everything correct, but your neighbor isn't. And there were numerous times at campgrounds that I could hear bears, one running with their claws and their and their claws scraping the concrete because these were nice. They had, areas where you could just set up your tent on concrete. So, yeah, I decided early on to not do that. There were a few times where yeah, it was creepy. I drove in like a campsite, and at first I never paid to stay until I drove and checked the place out. But most of the time there was no one there. But there were times where I was setting up a tent and I had my tent set up, and a lot of the areas in Alaska doesn't have to be campsites. You could pull over anywhere and, camp. So this, I have to cut these a little bit short. I'm going on 10 minutes, and if you'd like to learn more, give me a follow and a like, and you'll be able to see and hear more about camping in Alaska or traveling solo as a female.